Here it is, man. This is episode 2. We're big time now. We are big time. It's your boy Boondock here. This is Fearless Sports. And, of course, I got with me the talent of the show, Joe Davidson. What's up, Joe?
You're the talent. I'm just sitting here basking in your shadow as he brings in another argumentative L.A. hat. We'll discuss later. Last week it was the Dodgers. Now it's...
No, this is the Dodgers hat.
What, red?
Yeah, let me explain to you what the Dodgers do. This is the brilliant marketing of the Dodgers, right? And I know there's a lot of Giants fans here. They don't want to hear this. Our live studio audience,
which is why you have to explain yourself.
Which is why I'm going to have to explain myself. So here's how it goes down. L.A. at the big Dodgers main store there in at Chavez Ravine has a hat with L.A. on it in every color for every baseball team, right? American and National League. So if you look on their big wall, they have like Toronto Blue Jays colors, whatever. It's LA, right? The one that's my favorite is the San Francisco Giants hat. It's the LA in the orange and black. It's my favorite because I hate the Giants so much.
Well, it's probably mutual. But that's what's fun about sports. And one thing we will touch on that we kind of touched on last week is, are you back full bore on sports? Are you tired of the political theme? Should there be a time and place? Can you balance it better? What do the consumer want? What's the athlete want? That's something we'll touch on later. You were kind of, you're not sure, and you're a Dodger fan, and you're not sure you want to go. Do you want to go in person? There's a difference in, you want to watch them on TV or hear them on the radio. Yeah. As compared to going all the way to L.A.,
which I do
watching.
Like the last few years, well, my whole life, I've lived up here for a long time. Grew up in L.A., moved up here when I was in high school, and I used to go to games down in L.A. all the time. And I still do, up until this last year when COVID hit and everything else. And then I was having some issues with some of the politics, but I tried to, pretend like I wasn't seeing it. But now it's like so much in my face. Now there's nothing I can do. I have to notice it, and I have to act. So what I tell my daughter and stuff is, hey, I do not like this. I don't like that. I don't like this. I don't like that. But I'm going to go down to the game and check it out anyway. It's just like Coke. It's just like Coke, right? Coke with their, the little thing that came out where like be less white, and they're doing, they're like anti the Georgia voter ID law and all this other stuff. And I'm like, no more Coke. We're not allowed to have Coke. So this is tough for me because in some of my favorite restaurants, they'll have like the Coke products. Or like in Subway, if I want to go grab a quick Subway, it's all Coke products. I have to go buy the Subway, then go to the store and get a Pepsi. Like that's what I have to do. And it's all because of these clowns messing up my world.
Well, could you imagine sitting at a baseball game with Keith Brooks? I mean, it wouldn't be dull. More beer, security on alert. No. So if you'll notice, I wore a Milwaukee.
I saw that.
Which is kind of championing the small market
team. I like that.
And we touched on it last week. What helps balance the NBA? Well, you have the large market, the Los Angeles Clippers, Lakers, New York, Brooklyn, Chicago, Miami, the Warriors. And then you have the small market, Sacramento, Milwaukee,
Phoenix.
Orlando, Phoenix, smaller, even though it's got...
smaller.
It still has hockey, has NFL, but not a major city. Yeah. And so I think sometimes we kind of root for the underdog. And if the Milwaukee Bucks could get past Atlanta... That's the first time the Bucks will be in the NBA Finals since 1971, which is, so
crazy.
So it shows, and Utah's been in the Finals 97, 98 when the Bulls finished them off. Right. So it can be done. The Portland Trailblazers won it all in 1977 with Bill Walton. It can be done. The Kings I covered the Kings inside and out for the Sacramento Bee when they were close to getting to the Finals. But as we talked about before, Keith, you got to draft well. You better trade well, otherwise you won't, because you're not a free agent destination. So you talk about Giannis, the Greek freak. That's an all-time talent.
Is he gone?
If they win it, I don't think so, or if they get close. And that's a topic we'll touch on later. Yeah. Most influential players in NBA history, Giannis might be a global trend-setting guy because he's a foreigner, much like Dirk Nowitzki was, and Vlade Divac, and it makes the NBA a global appeal.
It's been a global appeal for a while, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, yeah, we're going to hit that because I read the thing that came out that talked about the 4 most influential NBA players ever, and I was reading it and looking at it.
Subjective list.
It's super subjective. I'm not like devastatingly angry at it, although it's very much like 1985 on, right?
Not even that. It felt like more like 2005 on.
It did, but Jordan's on it. And,
okay, you're right. 80, so mid-80s, you're right.
Yeah, so I'm going way back, right? I remember watching Jordan in North Carolina, James Worthy and those guys, in the NCAA tournament, and then coming to the Bulls and them sucking for a long time. Jordan would drop 65 points and they'd lose by a point. That's probably the most influential that I've seen outside of maybe one other guy that I'm going to put on my list. Right. And I'll do a little bit later.
Right. And the Jordan thing is for, it's that list that we're going to touch on. We have to keep in mind that there's generations and eras. The NBA didn't start in 1983. It started way back in the late 40s, and there were trendsetters there. The World Wide Web, television, the NBA playoffs, the NBA championships into the early 80s were still on tape delay. Could you imagine?
No, I remember watching it on tape delay.
The finals. I did too.
Yeah, it wasn't really until like what, the late 80s, early 90s when
I think it was once Magic Johnson and Larry Bird got warmed up and going, I think certainly by 84 when they were both in the finals for the first time, that was massive ratings.
Yeah, that was massive.
And then Jordan really helped elevate it to another. He became a global brand.
Yeah.
And when they did the Dream Team in the Olympics in 1992, Jordan was the biggest global athlete maybe since Muhammad Ali. And I think people appeal to a Jordan because everybody could play basketball. Yeah. They can't play to his level, but not everybody boxes like Muhammad Ali. You don't see a lot of kids
But Jordan
boxing.
Also was like, he was that cool. Like, I hated Jordan because I hated Chicago because I was a Boston Celtics fan. But, with the tongue out and his swag and
the big shorts and the shaved head.
Yeah, he just was cool, man.
Yeah.
And so everything that he did, it just kind of elevated the game. Okay, so
and we all wanted, just for 1 minute in a pickup game, we all wanted to have a flash where we could hang
juke
a little
somebody,
bit. Maybe not above the rim, but just kind of. Dr. J was influential decades earlier.
Yeah,
but to have that, we admire athletes like that because they do things we could only fantasize about.
Yeah, and it is a true fantasy because when I tried out for my high school basketball team and got cut, and then I was like, no, I'm really good. No, bro, you're not good. And it was one of the guys that actually was the assistant coach for the Kings. I can't remember who it was now. I'm blanking on it, but he was an assistant coach for the Kings, I think in 2014. He came over, and he was my old high school basketball coach. And he didn't know. We had him on the show when I was at Sports 1140, and we came on and we were talking about it, and he was like, hey, and I was like, hey, man, yeah, it was good. I'm glad that you're over at the Kings now.
Vance Wahlberg?
Wahlberg, yeah. And I was
why
like,
we're here.
Vance, man. And I said, hey, man, do you remember coaching at Newark Memorial High School? And he said, yeah, I remember that. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, did you go to Newark Memorial? I said, yeah, I even tried out for the basketball team. And you cut me, you bastard. So it was.
He probably didn't like your goatee. Well, probably wasn't that slick back then.
It was not that. I couldn't grow any. I couldn't grow any hair back then. We've got a few things going on, so we're going to talk a little bit about those influential players. I want to talk about where we left off last week, a little bit about. Am I back full bore with sports? I kind of give it away a little bit, but I'm going to tell you why I've come to the conclusion that I have. And also, we've got a guy who's going to come on who was big in high school sports here. His name is Ron Martin, assistant football coach out there at Oak Ridge High School. We're going to have him come on. He's also a business owner here in town. He's going to talk about some high school sports. He's going to talk about his business. He's going to talk about how COVID kind of impacted this area in El Dorado Hills. But first...
And you know what? One thought on Ron. He's a guy who's in the community, and he has worked with kids who are in in the NFL now.
That's true.
Ian Book could talk about
Ian
the character.
Book.
And it just shows that sports community, business owners can all blend.
Yeah, and I really want to get some input on Ian because I was a big Ian fan when he was here.
And then goes Notre Dame.
And then he went to Dame, and I like Dame, and I watched him play, and then he became like the all-time
winning this guy,
which
is something.
That is something.
That's the first thing you put on your resume.
Joe Montana played
there,
man. So I think did Joe Theismann play? Joe Theismann
he
played.
Did.
Yeah. So I mean, there's been some great quarterbacks.
Theismann in 72 or 73 was a Heisman contender.
Yeah.
And his name was Theismann.
Theismann, right? Yeah.
And so the PR guy, public relations guy for Notre Dame, said, "Let's tweak your name a little bit and have fun with this. Theismann for the Heisman."
Yeah.
Which just screams of ego.
Yeah.
And if you know Joe Theismann, he certainly embraced that.
He really does.
And he never changed it back.
No, he never went back.
And he never won the Heisman either.
Yeah. And then they asked his dad years later, how do you pronounce it, Theismann? He said, Theismann.
Yeah.
Of course it's Theismann. But what we're going to do real quick here is this is going to be new on the show is we've got our headlines, and Bradley is going to be doing our headlines for us. She'll read the headlines, then you and I will kind of bounce back and forth on it. So, Bradley, what do you got for us?
All right, guys. So, couple topics. First thing I want to talk about is the Clippers-Suns game.
Oh, yes, the Clippers-Suns game.
So, starts out, they're down 2 starters, right? The Clippers are not looking good. They're facing elimination. They go to their boy, Paul George. Career performance. Ty Lue comes in. Some adjustments. They end up sweeping with a 5-game victory with 41 points, winning that game.
Yep.
Do you think that the Clippers can win this series?
You're the basketball guy, right? You've been writing and covering the Kings for years. I'll give you my opinion, but I want your opinion first.
I'm going to go bold. Let's hope not. I think that what's fun about the NBA is a team like the Phoenix Suns, an upstart, only been in the finals twice. 1976 lost to your Celtics. And then 1993, Charles Barkley, Danny Ainge, Marley, and those guys lost to the Chicago Bulls during the great run. I'm pulling for Phoenix. We're not supposed to root, but we could do it here on this show. And
I'm drinking on the show.
It's exactly right. And Phoenix better win this series. When you're up 3-1 and you're on the cusp, you'd better finish.
Yeah.
And we talked last week about legacy. And when you talk about legacy for the Clippers right now, that's something that doesn't seem to be within the grasp of Kawhi Leonard. He's been banged up. We don't know how serious he is. So Paul George has come up, and Paul has had, how good is he? And I think it rankled a lot of traditional sports fans when he was kind of shopping around. Where do I want to play next? Let's build this super team here. And Phoenix is appealing because we talked about him last week is, Chris Paul. Yeah. How great is Chris Paul? He's a good player. He's a great player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
But he is
this playoff
so
series
well with this
shows
team.
him that he's great.
Yeah.
He's great. He's helped elevate DeAndre Ayton, the first pick of the draft in 2018. Second pick was Marvin Bagley. We won't be mowing that. But so I think it's a feel-good story to see Phoenix. Nobody saw this coming. Phoenix has come a long ways, and it's like we talked about earlier, Keith, and last week. Phoenix was not a free agent destination, so you better draft well.
Yeah,
and Devin Booker, a great draft, and DeAndre Ayton was a great draft pick, and you get a good trade and getting Chris Paul. So they're right there. Monty Williams, the coach, is somebody to root for. He's faced absolute tragedy, lost his wife a few years ago, and he's a beloved coach and figure. And it would be quite a Herculean effort for the Clippers to win it. They've trailed 2-0 in all these playoffs so far. So if they could do it, they've earned it. But I'm go Suns.
Yeah, I don't think they have the ability to be able to combat what Phoenix is just too deep. From what I've seen, Phoenix is too deep. They do have. I know they were at home they lost at home last night.
Grand opportunity. Place was electric.
Oh, it was. But they'll be back, and if it goes 7 games, and I just don't see that happening. So growing up in LA, I hated the Lakers. It's because my dad loved the Lakers. My dad went to UCLA. I went to SC. There's always been this little. I love my dad, but it's like I hated the Lakers. So I rooted for the Clippers, even though they were in San Diego at the time. Then they went to LA. I'm a big Kawhi Leonard fan. I like Paul George. I was a big fan of of the coach, the head coach over there, just until last year.
Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers, I was a big fan when he was a player. I was a big fan when he went to the Celtics.
He's a good guy, too. That makes him easy to root for.
Yeah, he's a good dude. So, so I like them, but I like that Phoenix Suns story a little bit better. And if it were the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks in the finals, there might not be that many people watching, but it's going to be exciting.
It would be an entertaining series. And it's new blood.
Series. Yeah.
It's new blood. We don't see Phoenix would be in the finals for just the third time since 76. Yeah. Franchise started in 68 or so. And the Bucks have only been around since like 68 or so, and this would be just their second. So it's new blood, which I think helps inspire, maybe some more viewers.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. All right, what's our next headline?
All right, so next thing that's coming up in our headlines that I think would be good to talk about is Tom Brady. No, you love that. You're so excited.
Yeah. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about it right now.
He has HBO released a trailer of their upcoming series of The Shop Uninterrupted. Yeah. And Tom Brady gives us a clip of him saying, and I quote, one of the teams that he was interested, and I quote, weren't interested at the very end. I was thinking you're really sticking with that. Can I say bad words?
Abbreviated a little bit.
With that MFer.
That salty language, insert expletive here.
Very, very bad word.
Yeah.
Basically, he was, saying that a team that he was maybe into and kind of shopping for before he went to the Bucks wasn't that interested in him at the end.
Yeah.
And
refreshing.
He couldn't wait to stick it to their current QB afterwards. And he won't say who it is.
Right.
And I want to know who you think he's talking
So it could be.
I think it could be two guys.
I think it could be. Well, I think it could be a few, but I think the most likely is that it's Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, because I know he wanted to go to San Francisco because he's that was his team growing up.
He grew up in San Mateo, which right there in
San
Francisco.
Joe Montana's his favorite player of all time. That's his team. I know he wanted to play for them. And then when there was an opportunity for him to come, I know that you said that they actually talked to him. But obviously they did talk to him. There was a little bit of interest, but they went ahead and stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo, which I said they shouldn't have done. I think they would have won 2 Super Bowls with Tom Brady. But be that as it may, that's who I think is. The only other person I think it might be is what's his name in Chicago? Trubisky.
Yes. What I said a moment ago, I thought it was refreshing to hear, not that he's ripping on somebody, but Tom Brady for 20 amazing seasons has really kept it to the vest. He's never been in any kind of controversy.
Very quiet, too.
Very quiet. Never seems to say anything controversial. And so good for him for sticking it to somebody. And I can understand, Keith, why maybe the 49ers passed. He's an old guy in the NFL.
Okay.
And he just is. But he
won the Super Bowl.
Right. But what he did galvanized his greatness.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think anybody, and you're a big Tom Brady fan, I don't think anybody would have been surprised had he hit the wall during last season.
No, I was expecting it.
And you're almost bracing for it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. And so in hindsight, the Niners should have done it. But and the other thing that a lot of people don't know about, and I've reported on it before, because when Tom Brady's in the Super Bowl, you're looking for a local angle. And Tom Brady's best friend growing up, and I forget his name, is the longtime administrator at a high school in Grass Valley, Nevada, Union High School, and superintendent. And Tom's very close to his mother.
Right.
Who still lives in San Mateo, and she's battled cancer. It's been pretty grim. There's a couple of years she couldn't go to games.
That's right.
She went to games last season, so I think that appeal of being near home,
absolutely,
was appealing. And so, it's and we talked about this last week, Keith. Is Tom Brady? We're tired of Tom Brady. Well, then root for greatness anyways, because you don't see guys like him. Yeah. We're not going to see guys playing 20 years in the NFL.
No, you won't
not
see
at that position.
You'll see guys that are good. You'll see guys that had as much talent as he did. You're never going to see anybody as great as he was, because there's other things, there's other intangibles. And we can even ask the coach. We'll ask him when he comes on here as well. But, you're not going to see anything like that again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the one guy I thought had the opportunity to do it would be Aaron Rodgers, because he's so good. Right. But Aaron Rodgers' greatness is also the thing that holds him back, I think. ability is also what holds him back. His desire to want to hit the grand slam home run all the time is the thing that screws him in the end all the time. And
a lot like Brett Favre.
Yeah, a lot like
when
Brett
you're
Favre.
when you're blessed, Keith, with an arm like that, you use it, but sometimes it does get you in trouble.
Get you in trouble, man. So I thought that was the problem with Aaron Rodgers, and I started off being happy about that, but now I kind of like Aaron Rodgers, so I'd like to see him do well. All right, what's our next one?
All right, so next I want to talk about this situation.
Yeah,
with
I like that guy.
NC State being ruled ineligible by the NCAA.
Oh yeah.
In what sport?
This is the college baseball series.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So,
at first, I'm thinking football, basketball, but okay.
So on Saturday, there was the College World Series game between Vanderbilt, or I don't know if that was when it was announced or when the game was, but I know that it was announced that NC State was now ineligible after playing the game because they had players that tested positive for COVID.
Right.
And they were thrown out of the championship of the College World Series. I mean, these are kids. It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
They commented that the NCAA and the committee regret that NC State's student athletes and coaching staff will not be able to continue in the championship in which they earned the right to participate.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how devastating this is for these kids.
Lifetime devastation.
I mean, that just breaks my heart. That's a huge thing. Do you think that the NCAA made the right decision with this?
So real quickly, I'll say, so what happened was that, NCAA or NC State was playing Vanderbilt, lost that game, double elimination. They had a chance to play again to go to the championship game. They had 2 guys test positive for COVID. Then 4 others tested positive for COVID. Those were vaccinated players, right? So they couldn't play. So they played with like 13 players or something like that. They had their 9 on the field. They had 4 pitchers, and that's it. And they got beat. I can't even remember what the total score was. NC State's never been to the championship game before. Probably the best team in college baseball, though, this year, and had an opportunity to play again so that they could beat Vanderbilt and go to the championship game, which I think that they would have done even with them being, lamed up with only, 14 players, whatever that they had. NCAA, after that game, even though those players didn't play, they went ahead and played that game anyway. And then in the middle of the night, the NCAA decided they were going to go ahead and pull their eligibility. So they couldn't play. They said they couldn't play. They had to be disqualified. Vanderbilt got to go to the championship game by default.
The game wasn't played. It was a vacated game. Right?
Yeah, it was a vacated game. And this, to me, this is crappy anyway. NC State, I think, would have won the championship, and I was rooting for them this year, much like with the Phoenix Suns or with the Milwaukee Bucks. But what pisses me off more than this is the overall theme that the NCAA is so. They're like it's like a communist country. They have this amazing power that they wield on these kids all the time. And I don't want to be like poor kids all the time, but at the same time, what they did and the way they did it is really reminiscent of the kind of crap that they've pulled with college basketball, with college football. It's always got to be their way or the highway. They never listen to anybody. There's no open discussion about anything. And the way they did it to me was just really, really shady. So
the NCAA, the governing body, it's going to say that it's enforcing its rules. And I haven't looked into it thoroughly, but I would imagine there was some language in the paperwork that if there's positive tests, you guys are subject to be removed. Mm-hmm. Okay, we accept that. But I think the other thing, Keith, is people were tired of COVID interrupting a player, and even Chris Paul for the Phoenix Suns missed 2 or 3 games because of protocols, and it is devastating. And you would think that I think it's unfortunate. I think it's the wrong call. You could understand, I think, to a degree, if you really try to understand the whole thing, that hey, if we have any positive tests, we got you're done.
Yeah. They let them play that game.
Right.
They pulled those players out and let them play. I know that there was COVID protocol, but it's like they let them play that game, but they're not going to let them play the next one.
Right.
It's just,
and then that happened in some. Didn't that happen in the World Series? Where it's so tricky. Find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, you got to find a way.
And if you have to get behind closed doors and say, "Hey, make everybody adhere," and I did some stories. UC Davis women's basketball went to the NCAA tournament. It was down. All the NCAA tournament games were in San Antonio, and nobody was allowed to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And you were bunkered in, and they understood you either accept it or you don't come, and they did, and it took away the whole tourism aspect. They couldn't go out. Everything was in the hotel. All the team meetings and meals and all that.
That's how the NFL is going to be this year.
Yeah, and they the players were so excited to be there.
Yeah, man.
But and so Stanford wins the championship for women's basketball. And the one underlying thing is, we felt so sheltered in.
Yep.
People are ready for that era to end.
Yeah, they are.
And let's hope we're getting past all that. Our guest Ron Martin could certainly understand that the high school football season. High school football is huge in America, especially including around here. Getting a high school football game in this spring. The season was moved from the fall to the spring to kind of get some distance there. Was a nightmare. Yeah. There were so many reschedulings and games that didn't happen. So the specter of COVID it's still there. It's gonna happen again. It could happen in the NBA Finals.
Good. We'll have to see how it goes. All right, our final story here, and then after this, we'll take a quick break, and then we're going to be bringing our assistant football coach on here, Ron Martin. We'll talk to him in just a few minutes. So our last headline, Bradley, what you got?
So. Last one is a pretty big one. I'm sure, obviously you guys are aware. Carl Nassib
for
the Vegas Raiders. Ugh. That's weird to say.
It's a stupid thing to say.
Just say Raiders.
Yeah. He came out as the first openly gay active NFL player. Mm-hmm. In pro football. And he said that it's because he feels supported by his friends and his family, and he's ready to come out and make that journey. How do you think that the fans of the team, of him, of football, of sports in general will respond?
Bradley, thank you for the headlines. I will. I'll say something real quick. I'll throw it to you, and then we'll take our quick break. But it doesn't matter to me ever. Like I never think to myself, I'll bet you that guy bangs a lot of chicks, right? Like I just it doesn't bother. And then that guy probably doesn't like chicks. Maybe I never thought about Tim Tebow not having sex with anybody. I didn't.
Or AC Green, which is why you didn't like the Lakers.
Green, exactly. Yeah. Like it's never been a thing for me. I know there are a handful of people that might get hung up on it. I certainly don't think it'll be a big thing in the NFL. Not in today's NFL. Not in today's.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And kudos to Carl. And people say, "Well, what's the big deal?" Well, this is there's not a more macho sport in the history of the world than football, than NFL
rugby,
football.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's true. But certainly not on the
certainly not in America.
And on the whole appeal, and it's the number one sport, and it's $1 billion deal. Yeah. And if he feels that he needed to come out to find peace, and he's got a supportive team and the league has stood behind him, that's great. And I think anybody who fans her question was, what will fans say? Well, there's always the idiot fan.
There'll be a couple of idiots.
And they're going to taunt him and all that. And maybe, they're less than zero, those guys. And then the hardcore Raider fans, those who are still in LA or those who are still in Oakland, they just want him to play. Be a good player, do what you do, and just be a dominant player or a good player, good citizen. They don't care otherwise.
We'll see how he is as a player. He was a 3rd round draft pick. I can't even remember where he got drafted, where he went when he first got drafted. I can't even remember. We'll see. I mean, he's made the team. We'll see, or we think he may.
Well, some people have suggested that. Well, now he just guaranteed himself a spot on the roster, and the Raiders couldn't cut. That's ridiculous. That's overthinking it.
It is overthinking it. I do think, though, that there's a little bit of truth to that. Like, I don't think he did it because of that, but there certainly is the possibility that if they were to cut him, they would take a lot of heat. You know what I'm saying? It may. I don't think it'll happen. We'll see what happens with it. But
those would be critics, quote unquote, fans, who say that they cut him because he shouldn't have been cut because he came out. Well, that's absurd. And those people aren't at practice.
No.
And we know how competitive football is.
But you know how people are.
Yeah, training camp starts, Keith. Yeah. You've been in NFL training camp. They start with 120 guys, and then you whittle it down to a 60-man roster. There's a lot of it's hard to make.
I know. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. What if he makes it? We'll have to see. Like I said, I didn't know about him until
exactly.
Until this
and I think he's genuine, and I don't think he wants it to be a story.
No,
I
don't think so either. I don't think so either.
And he just kind of Tim Tebow. Oh well, Tim Tebow was trying out for the Jacksonville Jaguars because he knows Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was his coach in Florida.
That's right.
Urban knows his character. He knows he's a hardworking guy. Probably not going to make the team.
He may not make the team.
And it's not something. Hey, they're friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, coach, can I work out for you? The guy looks like an atlas. Yeah. You could
certainly looks the part.
Sure, but he doesn't. Just because he's a friend and he gave him an opportunity, but it doesn't mean he's going to give him a job.
Yeah, we'll have to
he has
see
to
how
earn
that
that.
goes. We appreciate the headlines. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to listen from our sponsors here in just a couple of seconds, and then when we come right back, we'll have Ron Martin come on. He is the former assistant football coach at Oak Ridge High School, and also is a local business owner as well. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hey, what's up? It's Boondock. I need you to check out Milestone. Milestone is by far the best place for brunch on the weekends or lunch during the week. Whether it's a consistently changing interpretation of fried chicken and waffles or classics like fried green tomatoes, fish and chips, or probably the best damn selection of salads that you've ever seen. Seriously, take my word for it. Milestone is the community's gathering place for brunch, lunch, and dinner. And you should definitely check out the cocktail bar for the best Bloody Marys or Tiki Tuesday. Go check them out. Milestone, inside Town Center in El Dorado Hills. All right, welcome back to Fearless. We are here. We're going to introduce our guest here in just a couple of minutes. I'm Boondock, a.k.a. Keith Brooks, and that is Joe Davidson, the famous esteemed writer for the Sacramento Bee, been writing sports and talking sports for
pre-internet, baby.
Pre-internet and before I was even born.
No, not quite that long.
Yeah, no, I've heard. Listen, I'm 29 this year, so
yeah, I just turned 35, give or take.
Yeah, so you started when you were like 7 or whatever. Yeah, no, I get it.
It was a six-year-old prodigy, and some people go, "Really?" Yeah.
Yeah, that happens.
I'll milk it.
Could be.
Yeah.
So we're back, and we're going to introduce our guest in just a couple of seconds. Recapping, we've got the Phoenix Suns one game away from being able to close this thing out and go to the NBA Finals. We're going to talk about whether or not I'm going to be watching those NBA Finals, whether or not I'm going to be watching the NFL this year, Major League Baseball. We'll get to that in probably about 8 to 10 minutes or so. But
and fans...
Yeah.
Or the same way. There's a lot of fans. I don't know if I want to watch. I don't know if I want to keep, having the political undertones.
Yeah.
And you may have others say, you know what? I'm going to ignore any political undertones. I just want to see action. I want to see the Bucks. I want to see the Suns. I want to see who's in the last two teams standing.
I think really big NBA and sports fans are watching. The ratings, which had been tanking for the last few years and was down I think 70% from the year prior in these finals, spiked and went up. And since LeBron James is out.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a correlation. I think
New
it
blood.
Is. But,
and we're seeing some incredible performances.
Yeah.
Giannis, Paul George, Trae Young. Some of these guys are just
Trae Young,
remarkable. Dude. I mean, have we, not to get long-winded here, but so many 40-point outings.
Dude.
And that didn't happen during the 80s.
No.
I mean, Jordan even didn't do that very often.
No, but I mean, the game is a little,
it's a lot different. A lot more three-point shooting.
Yeah. I mean, you got three-point shooting. You've got guys that will chuck the ball up at any point in time. There's a lot of guys who are not great scorers, but then you've got guys like Trae Young who that's what they do. That's all they do. They're playing defense. They shoot the ball. Steph Curry style. Don't expect him to play defense. Don't expect his ankles and his wrist to hold up. But man, he can hit that three from anywhere on the planet. All right, so let's introduce our guest with us right now. He is the former assistant football coach at Oak Ridge High School. Also owns one of my favorite places here in El Dorado Hills. It is the El Dorado Saloon, and it's Ron Martin, man. How you doing, buddy?
Excellent. I really appreciate you having me out here, and
yeah,
with both Keith and Joe. I think it's exciting to listen to you guys and be part of this conversation.
Yeah, man. Well, we're really excited because when Joe and I were first talking, we one of the things we wanted to do is Joe has covered high school sports for so long, and in this area with Folsom High and Oak Ridge, with those two schools going at it, and at a lesser degree Ponderosa, I have to throw that in there because my daughter goes there. High school football is so big, it's been so huge, and you've been at the epicenter of it because you were at Oak Ridge and up until just recently, and you had a guy who played at Oak Ridge and then went to Notre Dame and has now been drafted by the New Orleans Saints. You must be super proud. I know you're close with them. I see your social media, Ian Book. Tell us what it was like to have him around and to coach him.
And what kind of character he was then and now.
Yeah, so, Ian, he comes from a great family. And I think that that you see that. And you watch him through high school and Notre Dame, his experiences there. I mean, he's always been, I think, the guy so far in his career that not everybody's on board with him. And if you watch him and if you follow him, I mean, you believe in him. But it comes from his family upbringing. I've been fortunate to know the Book family for when Ian was 9 years old.
Wow.
So him and my son Brock are very good friends. And the Martin and the Books are just good family friends. And so we got to coach him. I got to coach him as a youth player, his very first game as a quarterback.
He face planted.
Wow.
Yeah,
he face planted. I've talked to him about it in the story, not to interrupt you. And he got up and he had to pull the grass out of his face mask. And he goes, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
And his dad said, you're not quitting.
Yeah, they gave him all the support. I gave him support, but I did tell him that no, you're going back in the game, and I believe in you, and we're just going to run the ball right now. You don't have to do anything exciting. This is on you.
Just hand off.
Just hand it off for right now.
Be a game manager, my man.
So yeah, but you see where that kind of led to him. He's building confidence, and when Ian builds confidence, you start to see the greatness come out of him.
Yeah.
That's what happened when I finished up at Oak Ridge. Going in, I think, into Oak Ridge, I don't think anybody expected him to do what he did, and he had a very good high school career. And Notre Dame, noticed that and offered him. And I think when he went to Notre Dame, I think it surprised a lot of people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the people knew him that we were excited because you got to give him some time. And I think it took him about a year to kind of figure this out. And that confidence kept building, and then you see what he did. Look how he finished at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean that's
great competitor.
That was
great,
amazing.
Great field general, not the biggest guy. I remember when he was in high school, and he was a sophomore, and Oak Ridge played at Grant. And Grant was the mega power with great athletes, and Grant sent the house after him. They blitzed him on the weak side, and he handled it. And I don't want to say I was in awe, and I'm thinking, this guy's a player. If you can handle these guys. And that was his coming out party. And he's only just over 6 foot tall, so he's never been that big-bodied Cam Newton, Tom Brady type of guy. And he initially committed to Washington State. And then Notre Dame offered him and his parents. He's got very close to his parents and his brother, Nolan. And they said, you owe it to yourself to take that. It's Notre Dame. Take the recruiting
Notre
trip.
Dame.
And so that's kind of his character. Probably doesn't surprise you, Ron, where he thought, well, I don't want to be non-committal. I don't want to bail on somebody. Well, he haven't signed a letter of intent yet.
Yeah,
so he goes on the trip, takes his parents, and he said he was walking across the grounds and he sees touchdown Jesus, and he goes, it hit me. This place is special. And then he has to try to soar up the depth chart. They're getting All-American quarterbacks from all across the country. Becomes a starter his sophomore year, 3-year starter, winning his quarterback in program history. And the coaches, Brian Kelly and his teammates, say he rallies a team. They believe in him. You saw that. That's some of his greatness, and that's big. And so he's a 4th round pick of the Saints, and a guy who signed off on him was Drew Brees, who watched a lot of
very similar to
exactly same size and same character. And he said this guy can play. And Drew Brees and Coach Sean Payton, hey, look at that guy. And Brees is stepping out, is retired. He's got a shot. He's got a shot, and
he's easy they're actually switching locations, and Drew Brees is going to be announcing Notre Dame football games.
Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
And so that's how we had some insight. And so, one thing that Coach Eric Cavalier, he was the coach at Oak Ridge before Casey Taylor took over. You know Eric for a long time, and you've said this too, Ron. Ian Book's best friends in high school years ago are his best friends now. And so he's remained loyal. He comes over to the Eldorado Saloon with his friends, and he hasn't gotten big headed or big time. He's still a genuine local guy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he comes in. I think what hit me the most is when I finally got a chance to get over to Indiana, and it was during a spring football game for Notre Dame. So I didn't get to see a true home game, but spring football, it's pretty close. So I go there, and visiting Ian and hanging out with him and going to go get, breakfast, we're eating dinner at night. You go around to these places, you don't realize how big he is. I mean, there are people constantly coming up to ask for an interview. But when he comes home, he does not expect that. Yeah. He's at the saloon. He could be at the saloon, hanging out, and people who know him will come up to him, but he is such a genuine individual. He does a great job handling everything he's been thrown to him.
And it's is there a bigger pressure cooker job in college football than the quarterback at Notre Dame? And he I've talked to him a bunch over the years for stories, and he becomes a target when he struggles in a game, or they don't win a national championship, and fans being petty, they're fans, and they unleash on him, and he kind of laughed it off, but it's going to sting you a little bit, and that's part of it. But he answered the call big time, and he got drafted. A lot of 6-foot quarterbacks don't get drafted, but he has the intangibles, and he's got a cannon arm.
He does. To get back to your question about his high school buddies, so when we finished up, we got a chance to go to his senior night at Notre Dame.
Yeah,
his last home game at the stadium. I was surprised because my son Brock, which is his really good friend, has been to Indiana several times, hanging out with him all weekend long, for a week or a time. We get onto the field, and I was surprised how many Notre Dame football players
hang out,
asked Brock to take pictures with them, like the entire offensive line.
Oh,
said, Brocco, come on over here, buddy. And they wanted him in the picture. Oh, so wow. Ian, he treats his friends, and he wants to introduce them to his new friends, through Notre Dame. And he's just a phenomenal guy in that manner.
He's easy to root for. Yeah, he's super easy to root for. I've been following him on social media for a while. I know when he played at Oak Ridge, I had a couple of buddies who had kids who played baseball there, so I would follow the program a little bit, and remember hearing about Ian. And then when he went to Notre Dame, remember seeing him come back every now and then, because I was following him on Instagram or Facebook or something. I'm friends with his girlfriend on Facebook, so I knew that he comes back all the time. He's got this strong family connection. There was once when I saw that he was at Saloon that I was going to hustle down there. I'm going to get that interview. I never did, because I don't like bugging people. But yeah, he seems to handle it very well. When he got the call, that's those calls. I know you've seen them, and I'm sure you've seen them as well. When the kids get the calls.
From the NFL draft.
From the NFL draft, and the coach calls them, and it's like you well up a little bit, man. It's like they're super emotional, and his was even a little more emotional because he was here in El Dorado Hills at his family's house, and he's got his girlfriend there, he's got his dad there, his mom there, and for them to see that must have been huge for you too, knowing him so well.
Oh, it was incredible. Great experience. You get emotional about it, but we expected it at some point, sure. and then I think he probably was picked a little earlier than expected. I think he was like 50 slots in the overall draft,
right.
Sooner than
there was speculation that he wouldn't get drafted at all. The NFL draft's only 7 rounds,
yeah,
and so but the character, the story I did on him entering the draft, and we were talking about the combine and how he's doing, and what's going to happen, and laughed about his first high school or his first. He's 8 years old, and he gets sacked, and he's got mud in his dirt and grass in his face mask. And I said, you've never been in trouble. you've never said anything outlandish. You've never had any legal issues. And he said, hey, character counts. And when I'm talking to these NFL executives, a lot of it was on Zoom because of the COVID. And he goes, that's not something I had to explain. I didn't have to defend why I slugged somebody or why I flunked a class. And because the NFL people will dig into their high school coaches and find out what was he like in class, what kind of teammate. This is a big time investment of millions of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he said, and I said, what's your theme? He goes, stay out of trouble, be a good person, be that good person. And he held a quarterback camp at Notre Dame. Right before the draft, maybe it was right after, I can't remember. And he said it was right before. And he said, I didn't even know if we were going to have 20 kids. It's the Ian Book quarterback. They had 250 to 300 because, he goes, I went from nervous, like, we're going to have anybody there. And he just had another one. And so his appeal is dripping down to the youth and where people could say, that's the kind of kid you emulate. You work hard. You're a good student. You don't have to be as big as the house. You could be an average, ordinary guy at 6 foot and just do good things.
I would love to be 6 foot.
I listening to you guys talk about Tom Brady, earlier, it's Tom Brady stays out of trouble. Mm-hmm. He kind of does this
until he threw the Lombardi Trophy. and then walked out drunk.
Yeah. Well, it's a 20-year career, so over the 20 years, we can give him a few, right? But but consistently, I think that's what he wants to do. Well, I think Ian does a good job of seeing what other guys are doing, the guys that are successful, maybe the guys that he'd like to emulate. He does a good job of putting that all together, and that's who he's going to be.
No, that's great. So you're a longtime business owner, the Eldorado Saloon. I remember catching up to you. I wasn't doing. There wasn't a lot of sports going on, so I told my boss, I said, I'm going to go talk to some of the business owners. You and I talked, and how did you handle it? How crushing was it? You were closed. There were stop and starts. People like to get out. People want to, I think, looks like business is booming. The state is open. How hard was it for you? You had to lay people off. They're like family. A lot of them were high school kids that knew your kids. What a great summer job for kids or during the academic year before they go to college or even when they're in high school and college. But it was a rough sledding there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's tough. It was tough. It's a challenge. You don't prepare yourself for a situation like that. What business can really prepare for something like that? Yeah, I've always been under the impression that the restaurant and bar business was impenetrable. Right. You just say, hey, it's always busy. But then when a virus comes around, that changes everything. Yeah. So, I've always, I believe in my the employees that work for us. We try to work close with them. I know what's going on for the most part, like in their families when they share with me because I want to help them out. So to let people go when they're responsible for families was difficult. Yeah. Letting kids young kids, like you said, that we hire for the high school, letting them know that hey, this is not everything goes well. Life is not fair. We've always said that in our football meetings. Life is not fair, but this is one of the times where you're gonna now really understand what I'm talking about.
Right. Right. So now you guys you've been full open now for a while, but people are having a hard time getting employees to come back and keeping employees. Incentives being set up for people to not work and things of that nature. But how's it going with you guys? Are you guys able to get your employees back? Are you full staffed or having any troubles with that in that area?
Yeah. So during the COVID and all the times where it's the most challenging when things were shut down and we had a lot of support from our community. We've always it's been part of our mission as an owner of the saloon is to invest into the community. Yep. We do that with our time. We do that with some money. We do that with fundraising. We try to be a part of the community. We live in it, so we want to be a part of it. We got a lot of support during takeout only times. You can't come in. However, we are lucky because of our situation. When they did start to open up outside, we have a large patio, as we hold 80 people. Yeah. We were our landlord allowed us to expand our patio into the parking lot.
Parking lot, I saw that.
So, we had like 150 seats. Outside. So we were at 100% capacity. Yeah. During times, whether it was a weather issue, raining, we'd have to do the pop ups. Businesses were investing thousands of dollars. I know it's important to try to be part of these grants and these loans and what the government's trying to help, but I'll tell you, even with those, it's just a struggle. You know, because you have to manage that money. Where's this money going to go? You know, I want to invest it into the employees. I need to invest into, you know, our situation, you know, provide for, you know, business. And we made it through it. And I think we're stronger for it. Mm-hmm. And we're excited for everything to be open.
Yeah, well, you got a great reputation. It's a great spot.
Yeah, it is.
It's tasty. It's fun. Whether it's the Misters and, you know, as famous as Ron is, you know, if you coach high school football in Oak Ridge, you got a degree of that in the community. Yep. But the most famous person at your dinner table is your wife, Kat. She's she coached the Oak Ridge cheerleading squad to a state championship a couple of years ago. They had none of. That's right. They didn't have a season.
Joe, because of COVID, I have to interrupt you. It's a national championship.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. National championship.
Yeah, how did you get that wrong, man?
Well, I guess what I should have said is it took California a while to become part of the national scope for cheerleading. It was not declared a sport. But she's outspoken, and she's fiery, and she's proud, and she was really bothered. You know, here's cheerleading outdoors, and these kids can't do it. And I think the coaches, whether it was your wife, Kat, with cheerleading or you with football, a lot of kids are doing okay up in El Dorado Hills, but, you know, meaning they got, you know, mom and dad at home and they go to a good school, they live in a good community. But the COVID shut down the distance learning. Coaches were worried about the mental health on a lot of these kids. There were some kids who were pretty, whether it was up in Shingle Springs or in Elk Grove or Placer County, it was a toll, and it was a concerning toll for a lot of these kids.
Absolutely. We you know, at Oak Ridge, we are lucky. We're blessed with, you know, it's a good, strong community, great families. It is a place where most people have means, and there's a lot of support. When you see those kids that don't have a lot to really complain about or shouldn't, but then when COVID takes over and you see changes, and we saw changes in kids, and, you know, we tried to do something at Oak Ridge once a month as a team, building concept. We would have a bonfire. We would do a movie night. We just did different events. We even had a paintball fight, you know, and something outside of football, but just to keep them going, because they didn't have PE. They didn't have any of these classes. They weren't really going to school, so it was fun to come up with, and be fun to come up with. You know, and
you know, for both of you guys here, a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, the COVID, it's not fair. The kids are trying to get scholarships. Well, 1% of high school kids in America get a full athletic scholarship. So really, 99% of the kids were the ones who were struggling. Yeah, whether they're in theater, band, football, basketball, baseball, any sport, freshman kid, sophomore kid, varsity kid, and so thank goodness we're past that. And California is the most populated state in America, 40 million people, and a lot of schools were closed down. I think we're past that now. The COVID testing was a disaster, and Oak Ridge got, I think, a full schedule of 6 games, all pushed back to the spring. Some schools only had 2 games. Some only had 1, including like Elk Grove High School, which is as tradition rich as anybody around here. Yeah. And that was a burnout. And I don't know if that played a role in you stepping down. I always think that the best coach, the best job for high school coaching is the assistant coach. You coach your guys. You know, you coach your running backs or your linebackers, and then you go home and you're done with it. If you're the head coach, Casey Taylor's the new head coach, you burden the whole program. But there were a lot of head coaches who bowed out because of COVID, all the pressure, all the stuff, and they're just exhausted, and a lot of assistant coaches. So I'm not sure if that played a role, but it did for a lot of coaches.
Yeah, you know, it didn't play a role for me individually. I already had conversation with Eric Cavalier back in 2019. Okay. I didn't know when I said, hey, this is my last year, that I'd be coaching all the way into 2021. Right. Because we coached for 15 months. And it took a mental toll on us, because we were up and down. Are we going to have a season? Well, I planned to step away this year, and I really can't do that because we're still going. And, you know, it gets frustrating, you know, I'm trying to run a business. I had some plans, and but I'm committed to the program. I was committed to the kids because the kids were committed back to us. Right. I mean, they worked their butts off Monday through Thursday with no Friday night for 15 months before it actually even
Where's
happened.
the reward?
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
it was very difficult.
Yeah, it was difficult for people, even the kids that weren't in sports, like my daughter, who is going to be in track this year, but just going to school, entering high school, trying to meet new people, trying to understand the curriculum, everything else. It took a huge toll. And in the EMS world, where I come during the daytime, during the daytime, we saw a huge rise in suicide attempts, and unfortunately suicide successes. It just was a very tough time, but through it all, I know that you guys were very strong pillars in the community, not only in the business world, but showing the kids what true leadership is about. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And that we appreciate that, and I'm always at Saloon, and I know you guys are going to be you're going to be closed for 4th of July, right? But
yes.
you are going to be, but you're open all the other times of the year, and it's been huge. I've seen the crowds. You guys always followed safety precautions throughout this whole thing, which is kudos to you guys as well. All the food there is amazing. The nachos are my favorite.
Oh, the
beer's great.
The beers are cold.
The beers are cold. The beers are great. So we'll be out there more. We want to get out there and do a show live out there. We'll have to go out there and do that.
We need to do it. We actually have Pepsi products too.
Yes.
So.
I know you do, because I remember asking the waitress, I was like, you got Coke? She goes, no, it's Pepsi. I said, bring it on, mama.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. So Ron Martin, we appreciate you stopping by. Former assistant football coach at Oak Ridge High School and owner of the El Dorado Saloon. Make sure you go check them out, and make sure you get all the food and drinks you can. I'm telling you, once you go there, it'll be one of your favorite places.
And Ron's hands-on. Ron is there.
Oh,
Ron and Kat
there
are
all
there.
the time.
Kat's the greeter. And no, Ron, thanks for joining us. Always good to see you.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Good. Take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes with Fearless. Keep it here. It's funny because when I played high school football, and Ron carries himself like a high school football coach. You sit up a little bit higher, you straighten up a little bit. You want to make sure you're minding your P's and Q's when you got
I saw him a lot in action. I go to practices, and the fun part about going to a high school practice or a Kings practice is you get to talk to the assistant coaches.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of information. A lot of it's off the record. You just, hey, how's it going? And and it's always good to see Ron. And when he said that they're a part of the community, they really are. It's a small town feel, and that's what kind of what makes high school football fun, when the whole community is out, and the community does go and support. So that's he's not coaching right now, but he's still involved. He'll still go to the games.
You can take the coach out of the game, right?
Yeah.
You can't
And
take
he may
the
come
game
back.
out of the coach. Yeah, he'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll,
There's no choice.
We'll convince
put him
him
on
to come.
blast.
Yeah, exactly. We'll keep bugging him until he comes back.
Hey, we got a big topic. Let's
there's a couple of things. So we've had people write in, and I've told people before, you can write in. You can check us out on our social media. You can go on mine, Boondock Underground. It's Boondock the Entertainer is my Instagram. The Podcast Lounge on Instagram as well. You can go and you can send messages in, and that's the new email. And we also have email as well. We'll give it to you on the screen, and we'll give you our handles on the screen as well. Maybe up here.
Normally we say make the email civil, but what the heck? Make it uncivil.
There is no FCC regulations here. You can say
be
what you want.
Uncivil. Be barbaric.
Now I have other shows, and I do get a little colorful, so I try not to do it on this one, just to try to keep it semi-family friendly. I mean, Ron Martin's looking at me, man, so I don't want to piss off the coach. But you can send those questions, and I took two because these ones seem to be the most incendiary, and I really just wanted to use the word. Yeah,
in all my years of writing, I'm not sure. I don't even know how to spell it.
No, stop.
So I haven't used that. So I'll drop that in should be the name of the show.
The only reason I know that show, that is a great high tip. Don't mess me up now. The only reason I even know that word is from the movie. Almost Famous.
There you go.
When he's
it's a
talking
good word.
Incendiary. It's incendiary. I was like, that's such a great word. I'm gonna write it down. I don't know how to spell it, but I'm gonna incendiary. A couple of topics. All right. So someone sent in a message, and it said, I was watching the hammer throw in the Olympics. Only a few athletes seem to have respect for the flag and the anthem. I'm really getting sick of it. Not really a question, but more of a topic. What do you think about athletes disrespecting the national anthem and the flag? So, to get a quick background, is it the hammer throw? The hammer throw that this athlete was, because it's you swing the thing around.
Yes, and it's a metal ball on a steel chain, and Gwen Berry's her name.
Gwen Berry, that's
this was the in Eugene, Oregon, the USA track and field trials, the American Championships. I've covered a bunch of those up in Eugene. Sacramento's hosted them a bunch at Sacramento State, and so the winners, the top placers, represent the Olympic team. It's a fair question. It's been a topic of debate and issue and discord for years since Colin Kaepernick with the 49ers.
Well, even before that.
It's probably cost him his playing career because nobody's signed him.
That and his rag arm.
And so here's Gwen Berry, and she did it in the 2019 Pan American Games. I'm going to go first on this. I think there's free speech, so
oh my God, you took off the glasses too. You're serious, bro.
Well, I mean,
you're in serious.
I can't read the other way. And so, so she has that platform and that right.
Yeah.
As a media person, when you go to an event like that, you really don't want to cover that. Not because you're ignorant to what her statement might be, but that's not the storyline you're looking for.
Right,
it's a side story. If she wants to be available to the media and talk more about that, that's fine. If she doesn't, then that's a shallow message. And if she only wants to drive traffic to her Instagram to talk to rebuttal what people are saying,
that's what Kaepernick did.
Exactly. And a lot of people, understandable, everybody has an opinion, are saying if you don't love America, then leave. Well, she loves America. She is using this as a platform that says she thinks that there's still a lot of social issues.
Does she though?
Well, we have to believe what she says.
Is she?
And I don't like that she put a T-shirt on her head that said athlete activist. Time and place. But it's the same thing. Are you ready to come back and watch sports? A lot of people said I don't want that part of the storyline, so but I think if she's going to, she also has a forum. She could write a commentary. She could do have a press conference and all that.
She could go to some schools or something.
But it does upset a lot of people.
I think I'm all for people having a platform to do whatever if they're truly educated in it and they truly believe in it. I never thought for 1 second Kaepernick believed in it, and he also wouldn't give interviews about it. He wouldn't talk to anybody about it. The president of the United States asked him to come to the White House and talk to him. He wouldn't do it. It's like it's because I don't think he can string together enough sentences, and I don't think he really knows what he's talking about. And if you really want to talk about, like, and I don't want to get too deep into it because I have a political show and my head will pop off. But it's like if you really want to get into like social justice and systemic racism and all that stuff, at least understand what you're talking about. I would love to sit down with her and be like, okay, explain to me what you're talking. Where's the system that you're talking about that is fostering this racism? I'm not trying to suggest that there aren't athletes that don't feel that way, but I just feel like it's a cheap shot, and it's like a really bad place to do it. You're sitting there, you look like a malcontent. She's on there, she's got her 3rd place trophy, right? She's pissed that she's folding her hands and turning her back on the national anthem.
It's a bad look. She turned her back.
Yeah. And I'm not even...
I understand her being passionate. As media guys, we love a good storyline. You'd better talk about it. And you'd better give examples. Maybe she had some issues personal where she felt targeted or profiled or didn't have a fair opportunity. And I could certainly see the argument personally say, hey, you have a gift. Mm-hmm. You are an Olympian. It'll be interesting to see if it carries over to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And this even sprinkled down to the high school specter a few years ago when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee. And so I was calling local high school coaches, are your kids doing this? And some of the coaches would say, hey, we don't mind if the kids talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's have an open forum on campus and at the quad and talk about it. But we're not going to have 3 football players out of 45 take a knee because it looks like a team divided.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I would talk to some kids, And they, my parents went through this. My dad, okay, I could see that. I talked to other kids. Why are you taking the knee? I don't know. It just looks cool. That's not the right answer.
No, and yeah.
So some of the kids were educated. They were informed. Others were just doing it because I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I would love to have those kids come in here and sit down and talk, and then I can listen to what they have to say, and then set them straight.
Yes.
The other one that came in from a guy named Mike Whitaker, who hit me on Instagram, said transgender men in a woman contact sport like MMA, isn't that basically a form of abuse? Why is it allowed for a man? Why is it allowed for a man to beat a woman in the ring such as this? Why is this even supported or advocated for? Because someone thinks that they're a woman, and we're all supposed to be okay with this. So he's talking about it happened in MMA. You have a transgender was a man, now all of a sudden is a woman. Surprise! And they're kicking everyone's ass, right? The one player that was, I don't know, was track and field or something, and was like ranked 250th in the country, and then won the women's track. It's like, and so I think that
doesn't fit.
It's up to, and there's states now that are starting to pass laws that say that men, even if you've transitioned, you're not allowed to play in women's sports. And, I think if I'm okay with like Caitlyn Jenner and people like that who decide that they want to become a man or you decide you want to become a woman, hey, knock yourself out. But I think that there still has to be some lines drawn. Here's a nice medium, right? I won't bug you about deciding that you want to wear perfume and wear a purse and go become a chick all of a sudden. That's on you. But you're not going to force me to say, yeah, go on, use my daughter's bathroom, and you can compete in women's high school or college sports. To me, that's like a nice medium we could come up with.
So when you think of Caitlyn Jenner, who years ago was Bruce Jenner, in 1976 was the most famous athlete
Olympic
in the world.
athlete, yeah.
Exactly, great athlete. All-time greatness. Even Caitlyn Jenner has said it's not fair.
Yeah.
Transgender women should not be in women's sports.
Yeah.
And that's where it should end right there.
It should end.
I mean, that is the ultimate. It would be a lot more dicey if Caitlyn Jenner said, no, fairness and all that. No, I mean, that's where they should draw a line. And it just draws, I just don't agree with it. I think I agree with you, Keith, that if you want to be a man and you want to be a woman, that's fine. But don't suddenly try to compete, and it's different.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. You got a man who's in a ring who still has man muscles and man body and is now beating the crap out of some woman in a ring. It's just, to me,
I don't think people would watch.
Message,
I think people would largely not watch, and it goes right back to the consumer again.
I think so as well. All right, so let's transition out of that real quick, and we'll go to this. I did say that I was going to reveal whether or not I would go to any more sporting events and stuff. So here's what I've come down with before we end with our most influential NBA players real quick. I have decided that if NBA basketball, which I do want to see how it's going. And to be fair, they've pulled back a little bit on the Black Lives Matter on the courts and stuff like that. I think they saw that they were kind of crossing some lines.
Well, the consumer
is speaking, yeah. Right. And so when it's on in passing, I'll watch. I will read. So that should be, that's a good thing for guys like you. Mm-hmm. I will read what happens. I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to turn it on. I'm not going to attend. I've been offered tickets to go see the A's, tickets to see the Giants, which will never happen. And anyway,
next week Keith Brooks talks about attending a Giants game,
and unless they're playing somebody that I like, and I've said no because what Major League Baseball did, taking the All-Star game out of Georgia, taking a political stance, saying that voter ID was racist and all stuff's asinine to me. And I would just rather you just do your job. You do your job, and I will come and support you. When LeBron James isn't mouthing off about politics and stuff that he is clearly uneducated on, I think people like that. The ratings spiked for the NBA, and it isn't because you've got small market teams playing. It's because a lot of people think it's because LeBron James is out. Now, it may just be that they're tired of seeing LeBron James every single year, but at the same time, they feel like that mouthy SLB is gone now. I can go ahead and watch. I still won't do it, not until they get out of the politics. I want to go see the Dodgers play in LA so bad. I can't. I'm not going to do it. I will give football a chance, but if they piss me off with politics, that's off too. So that's where I sit right now, and the rest of the country is on the same page with ratings, with money, with butts in the seats. It's all been, and now we had COVID, and now it's opened, and people are starting to come in droves. But I think if this is baseball and NFL and the NBA's opportunity to scale back on the politics and welcome those fans back, kind of like when the baseball had their lockout, or when they had the strike, right? And then they finally came back, and you had Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, battling out
1998 or so, right?
Going up against Roger Maris. Like, that brought people, and it galvanized them, and they didn't have any issues for a while. This is an opportunity for sports to go ahead and embrace those fans now.
A year ago, we had the NBA playoffs, no fans. It was a bubble atmosphere, piped in crowd noise. It was a turnoff. I think that certainly played a role in the tanking.
Yeah, it definitely
did. You think about the NBA, of all sports, basketball fans make it feel like an event.
Yeah, so close.
We got tired of the cardboard cutouts and the board fans. We had images of that last week on the show, and you look at the Phoenix Suns and the great crowds that Phoenix has, and in Milwaukee, so all across the country, in Atlanta with the Hawks and with the Lakers, the Clippers, and people are ready to get back out. We talked to Ron Martin. Are people coming back out? People like to celebrate a sporting event. People want to go to, the saloon to have a good time, and I think people want normalcy without politics. I think there's a time and place. Kudos to the NBA for touching on it. You've got owners who are trying to work with their players, black players, these star players, and they want to have their voice, but you can't. It's not sustainable long term, Keith. You can't do it every game, every season, and I would be surprised if we see much of that next NBA season and this NFL season.
It would be a good idea, I think, for those players who are really concerned about things like that to maybe have that voice in a different forum, because what people like me and a lot of fans see is you've got really rich, powerful athletes bitching about non-fairness,
right?
And I'm trying to figure out how to pay PG&E, so I don't want to hear your ass, right? So if it's really that bad, then why are you going to take a golden parachute to your $3 million home? I don't want to hear it, man. Right. You know what I mean? So if there is issues and you want to really talk about it and open it up, then maybe open it up on a different forum.
And some guys in pro sports do a good job and say, if a black athlete will talk about how Black Lives Matter. Well, all lives matter, they might argue. It said, all lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter. Okay, well, let's have that discussion. But let's not make it a focal point for every game, every season. Pick and choose. The media is always, you're a longtime media guy, me, always looking for a good story. But sometimes it gets, I think we've gone that far. And you're right. People don't want to hear about, this uber wealthy guy, and some of these guys are making $40 million a year. Do they really? It's just enough is enough.
Enough is enough. And with that, we will wrap it up with this. So this did come out. Speaking of the NBA, there was a story that came out on ESPN talking about the four most influential players in NBA history, and it was Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Steph Curry. Okay, so
this generation,
and this was supposed to be all time, right? So I'll give you mine real quick. What I think is wrong with the list is, first of all, Michael Jordan's going to be on the list. He just is. He transformed everything, and turned having a sneaker into a became
the first
billion-dollar
global guy,
unbelievable,
and still making billions. So he and an all-time great player, 6-0 in the NBA Finals, all-time great defensive
competitor, just unbelievable. And for me,
so he belongs. He
definitely belongs.
But he's not even the first guy that should be on the list.
No, he wouldn't be the first guy on my list. Although it's almost like the Mount Rushmore. You're talking about four. Kobe, I had a lot of respect for. I thought his work ethic was amazing. LeBron obviously has had a huge impact on the NBA and the fans, certainly in this generation. And then Steph Curry changed the game as far as shooting. Never seen a shooter like him.
With his range, too. Yes.
Range is ridiculous. If it were me, my 4 would be Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird. Those are the 4 guys. Now, I'm a little bit of that's a product of my generation as well. So, although Bill Russell was before my time, I was a student of the game. So I paid attention to those things. But for me, those were transformative figures, and I think were the most influential at that time. Larry Bird, not just great basketball player, but in a sport that's dominated by African Americans, he came in and
let's face it, and helped bring more white fans back in.
Yep.
The NBA, and this is all about eras and generations. I would go with Wilt Chamberlain. I would go with, in order, Wilt Chamberlain, maybe even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was Lou Alcindor, who, with Muhammad Ali in the late 60s, changed his name, a Muslim name, and that showed that, and they talked about their disagreement with the Vietnam War. So they became advocates before that was well known. Yep. Oscar Robertson was the first NBA player to really push for free agency. So that's transformative. Magic Johnson, totally agreed. Larry Bird, they both came in at the same time.
Yeah.
NBA Finals used to be tape delayed until the early 80s. Those guys helped bring it up. They followed in the same footsteps as Dr. J, who kept NBA basketball exciting in the 70s, and the ABA kept it alive.
Bernard King, guys like that, and the New York Knicks.
Bill Russell, also the first black NBA head coach, so that's influential. I kind of think that Kobe Bryant and LeBron James are the same kind of player. But I think our list is better.
Yeah, I think our list is better.
We agree.
Also, with Bill Russell, had to deal with a lot of racism, true racism.
And he did not warm up to Boston as a community until many years later.
Way later, yeah.
This is when fans, predominantly 99% white, and there was a lot of stories in the 70s, is the NBA too black?
Yeah.
And and then that's where Larry Bird comes along. Yeah. The Great White Hope. He didn't want that title. He's just a great player. Yeah. My all-time team. Well, this will be a good topic for another day, but if I'm going to start an all-time NBA team, 3 guys that are locks for me are Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan. Yeah. Then you could have maybe Kareem, or you could have Wilt. Yeah. But I'm going to have those 3 anchors.
I agree with that 100%. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Okay, so listen, Spotify, iTunes, you can check us out. Go to Boondock Underground. Under our umbrella, you'll see Fearless Sports with Joe Davidson and myself. You can check us out, Boondock the Entertainer on Instagram. What's your Instagram? You
Instagram,
give yours.
Joe Davidson Media. Twitter is SACB @JoD_ somewhere in there.
And you're still writing for SACB, so
I'm on vacation.
Oh, you're on vacation.
That's how committed I am. I'm up here hanging out with you guys.
That's true, man. How many vacation days do you get, dude?
I'm like coaches. I take it all during the summer.
Do you?
So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go over to Ron and cause trouble. See, the thing about going to the saloon is I could get in trouble, and if they try to tell me to leave, I know the owner.
Yeah. Put it on him. So go check us out, Spotify, iTunes. Hope you had a good time, and we'll be right back here 1 week from now. So make sure you keep it locked into Fearless Sports. Thanks for hanging out.